Apologies. I started recording and I was ambushed. Didn't start my shift yet, so I was recording and someone came in to see me. So here goes again. I'm not going to start from the scratch. So as I said this morning, my life was totally out of sync, and I was turning to God for help to help me figure out whether I stand still and wait on the bus. So as I started moving off, I was about 2 minutes walk down the road when I decided that I'm gonna walk, and the bus came. I flug it down and it stopped. So thank God for that. But what made me really think this morning is how quickly someone I was looking and observing someone around me, and we got off the bus together, and they quickly pull out a cigarette and they puffed the cigarette. By the time we got to the next bus stop, she drank from a little canister, and then in no time, she puffed another cigarette again. And it had me thinking, when life get out of sync, what do I turn to? If I turn to God as often as people puff a cigarette, what would life look like? If I would turn to God for my relief, what do I turn to relieve my every problem? Every time I have a decision to make, do I stop and check in with God? And when life throws me a curveball, I'm good at plan A, B, C, and backup. And I've learned over the years that trusting God means that He sometimes allows all your plans to fail. And as I said this morning, the earlier part of the recording, I would normally just call a taxi, easy way out, cost me maybe 20 quid to get to work. And I'm like, no, I'm not paying my 20 quid, then I have to pay another 5 quid home on the bus because that's how much I pay one way, 490. And a day pass is about 490. So I just buy a day pass. So I was like, no, we're gonna bus it this morning. I had enough time playing with, but coming from my location, as I said, if I'd missed it, that would be it. I'd have been late because there's no other bus. It's once per hour. I live where I live. So I was willing to walk to different sections and locations this morning to get it to work. And which is why I started walking from the I missed my bus, and I was walking to my next replacement bus, and that didn't show. And then I was surprised I was so cool about it. I'm like, I would normally forget it. I'm gonna take a taxi. I'm like, nope, we're not taking a taxi today. We're gonna stay put. We're gonna take the bus. Whatever time you get there, you get there. And it just reminded me that on a spiritual journey, sometimes we have to sit in it. When life throws a curveball, we always want a quick fix. And sometimes life doesn't have a quick fix. Sometimes God allows us to we try other things, and sometimes God is not the first person we turn to. And when I reached for God this morning, did I get an answer to stand still? I was in limbo. I didn't know what I should move. But what was sure is when I stepped, because I knew if I didn't move at the time I moved, I was going to miss the next bus at the other location, which was like 12, 15 minutes walk away, depending on how fast I walk. So, and I know if I missed that, I would be extremely late for work. So I thought to myself, I'm going to take the chance. But the chance almost failed me. And I said to myself, bet you the bus is going past me in the road. And I keep walking and looking behind so I could run back. But it's when I went around the corner, it's like a walk of faith, really. It's when I got around the corner and I couldn't see anything. And I looked behind me, I see the bus coming. Now, normally the buses don't stop but at a bus stop. He knew he was late. And I flagged him down, but he could have chosen not to. Because I saw the bus went straight and I thought the bus had gone straight. And sometimes it reminds us that we make these decisions and we don't have the full picture. I tried to go on the website to see if it was delayed, and there was nothing. It just says, try another bus. I tried to call the company, said, we're not open. What do you do when you call God and you dial into God? But God dialed into his heart for me this morning. In devotion yesterday, the day before, was saying that God will dial you up. So God dialed me up in his heart this morning, and he stopped me. It wasn't the bus stop, and I apologized. I'm like, sorry, I started walking because I thought you weren't showing. And he understood that he was late and he picked me up. They're not always that understanding, but God had already dialed into his heart. And he was under instruction, but he still stopped and picked me up. So thank God for that. But it made me think, what do I reach for when life becomes overwhelming? Do I sink into God to find the solution? And what if He didn't? I just had to walk to the next bus stop, maybe a little fuming and vexed. I was going to be steaming, and it was cold, really, really cold. But how do we sit in it and trust God when life doesn't just get off sync? It true you off sync at the last moment. How can you still represent God and be smiling and be positive and still look like His child when life doesn't? What do you reach for? Do you reach for a cigarette? Do you reach for a vape? Do you reach for food? Because some people eat food. Do you overwork? Do you exercise? We can use all these different things that are, some are bad, some are good. Do you reach for the bottle? When life doesn't work the way you want it to, when our loved ones become sick, when you have a bad diagnosis, how do you deal with that? Our first instinct is to trust God and to reach out to God. But oftentimes, He is our last resort. I want to encourage you this morning that when life comes out of sync, reach for Jesus Christ. I did have a chat with him. It didn't bring the answer. I mean, a lot of people say, cause call. And there are times when I call him and it's just, but there are times when you just have to step out in faith and not knowing what he's saying. But at least you reach for him. Let us make it our intent. We say that Christ is the head of our lives and the center of our lives. Why not reach out to him as the head of our lives? And make sure that when, and I was just thinking to myself as I saw this girl just smoking like this and just drinking from her canister, I'm like, she just got off the bus and she just popped one cigarette and then she just drank and then she reached for another. And I'm like, wow, not even 5 minutes apart. 5 minutes the most, if that much. Because it said the bus would have taken 8 minutes and I was still seeing 6 minutes on the thing. And I'm like, wow, 2 cigarettes in such a short time. What if I call on God all this time? Food for thought. How often do you reach out to God? 1 second. Have a knock again. Bye bye.